Oliotia, brothers and sisters in Christ in Uganda. My name is Linda Nicely, and I am joining you from Ohio in the United States to share this first segment of the UCU Dissertation Clinic online. I'm going to be talking to you today, and I'm sharing my screen right now, on the very first step in the dissertation process, and that is selecting a topic. I found when I have been there on 2 previous visits and worked face-to-face with many of the students in a coaching environment that they were often apologetic and felt that they should be much further along in choosing their topic. And I'm here to tell you to stop doing that. It is actually preferable if you are at the very beginning of this process, because then we can be intentional and working through a thought process to get from a curiosity or a passion that you have on a particular topic to an actual research query, which then will help you be laser focused throughout the steps to get all the way to your conclusion and recommendations, and then be done and have that degree in hand. A little quick introduction of me. This is a picture of me with one of my students, Priscilla, on my first visit to Uganda. Priscilla was a master's in counseling psychology student, and my own master's degree is in the same field. So we had a lot of common, and I enjoyed getting to know her and all of the students. Both of my visits to Uganda have been enriched by the genuine, warm, kind, and caring students that I have had the pleasure to befriend and work with. So I wanted to share that. I may never develop your taste for Matoki, but Uganda has a very special place in my heart and always will. So moving into our topic for today, step 1. I'll also mention that when you download the PowerPoint for this presentation, you will find some of the comments that I'm making listed in the notes section. And so I can't talk about everything to the degree that I'd like to, but hopefully that will be a good place to reinforce our conversation for today. So selecting your subject for study, one that you have an interest in. You're going to spend a lot of time on this over the next several months, if not a year or 2. And so it needs to be something that you have a genuine curiosity about. What I often found with my students is that their interest came from their personal experience, whether that was in their village, in their community. They saw a need, and so they wanted to research it, develop data and conclusions and recommendations from that data collection, but then not just stop there, not just get that degree, put it on a shelf. They wanted to leverage it. They wanted to find an NGO to partner with or some funding to then implement their recommendations and really be a part of the solution in making Uganda a stronger and more vibrant country. So I found that inspiring on the coaching side of it as well. Move on to step number 2, and that is taking that informal interest. And that interest is something that you may have developed in your conversations with professional colleagues. Many of you are working part-time. It might be even in your classes. From day 1 in your master's program, keep a little journal where you could do some free writes. And if they talk about a current topic of national or local interest and it strikes a chord with you, pick a note about that and do some free writes. It's another way to start to brainstorm on ideas for your dissertation. But then changing that from a personal interest into an academic research query is another more intentional process. So you need to use and develop the key terminology, the key words that are used in your discipline. Doing this will help you as you begin to research. And I'm talking about research even before your literature review in chapter 2, the research that you need to do to even develop your purpose and objectives and so on will be much more accurate and specific if you are able to use the keywords from your professional thesauri or encyclopedias or journals. You also need to limit your interest. You need to be able to focus it so narrowly and directly that the data collection and the recommendations and conclusions that come from that data collection process will be valid and will actually be able to be connected to what you've set out to study. Selecting the perspective, we'll talk more about that in step 3. And then always, throughout your dissertation process, be able to step back and look at what you've done and make small adjustments if you need to make them to make sure that you're not going off track. And if you can do this at each step along the way, then you will be able to have a cohesive and integrated dissertation at the end. And it won't involve going way back to the beginning to start over, which is the worst ever. Connecting your query to the discipline. So think about, and I have an example of a gardening project that I had been working on here in Ohio. But if I wanted to study that as an agriculture student, I might look at it from a low maintenance, drought tolerant kind of plantings, to marketing, how might I market this nonprofit organization, to psychology or spirituality, what are the benefits from it? So you can take very different perspectives on your query depending on your discipline, and that will also then connect back to the vocabulary and the language that you're using. Realize that anything that you're suggesting here as a query has been studied before. You're perhaps finding a local perspective on it or a unique perspective on it and adding to the body of literature that way. But there's foundation that's going to be there. And so the more that you're using the right language, and this is where using and connecting with your research librarians can be very, very valuable, so that you're working smarter rather than harder, can be also a very helpful tool. Step 4 is just revising what you've started as very informal, very casual, kind of layman's terms, and becoming more specific in your language, positioning you then to take that research query and be better prepared for writing your purpose, starting to do your initial research, developing your objectives and your questions. So that's just a quick summary. Also mentioned the literature review that I've cited at the bottom. That source was what I used for this particular section of the dissertation clinic, and I highly recommend it. And I think I'm out of time, so I want to wish you all well, and I will be joining you again for a later segment. And in the meantime, enjoy all the other valuable contributions that you have.